Today we open not with headlines written by Western newsrooms, but with the sound of alarm echoing from Africa's heart. A question that challenges not only Burkina Faso, but the entire world. What if justice is no longer justice? What if the law itself has become a weapon? And what if a single sheet of paper signed in Paris, whispered through Washington, stamped by Interpol, is meant to chain an entire continent? This week, the world was told that Captain Ibrahim Traoré is now a wanted man. But we must ask, wanted by whom? For what crime? And who benefits when an African soldier dares to say our gold stays in Africa? Our oil fuels African homes. Our land belongs to our children. And why now? Why him? Why Burkina Faso? Why at the very moment when a small nation begins to walk without permission, does the international system suddenly brand its leader a danger? For this is not only about a warrant, it is about a pattern, the chains of slavery replaced by flags, of colonization, then by coups whispered into African barracks, and now by the red notices of Interpol, different masks of the same face, history repeating until someone dares to say enough. And here lies the fear that terrifies Paris, Washington, and Brussels most of all. What if the warrant fails? What if instead of silencing a leader, it awakens a people? What if the notice of arrest becomes proof that the empire is crumbling and Africa is rising, because Interpol presents itself as neutral, impartial, a guardian of law, yet its red notice? System has long been abused by authoritarian regimes and powerful states to silence dissent and protect their interests. And tonight we ask, justice for whom? Neutrality for whom? And why is it that when an African leader rises to protect his nation's wealth, suddenly Interpol's shadow falls? On paper, the red notice is not a conviction, not even charges, merely a request to detain. Yet once issued, it carries stigma, suspicion, and isolation. So, how does a soldier in one of the poorest nations on earth become a target of such machinery? Because he is not a danger to world peace. He is a danger to a world order built on African dependency. And consider the timing, just months after Burkina Faso moved to control its gold and uranium, just weeks after strengthening the Sahel alliance with Mali and Niger. Suddenly, a warrant appears. Coincidence or consequence? For beneath Burkina's soil lies immense wealth, gold, uranium, fertile land, and yet its people remain poor. Villages near the mines dark, schools collapsing, hospitals without medicine. Because foreign corporations extract, refine, and bank the profits abroad, while locals are left with nothing. And when the government demanded fairer contracts, the narrative shifted. The reformer became the stabilizer. Because wealth no longer flowed uninterrupted north, the same story told with uranium in Niger that lights French cities, while nearby communities live in darkness. The same story told with oil that fuels foreign industries, while African homes remain cold. And so history repeats. Patrice Lumumba declared, Congo's minerals belong to its people, and was branded dangerous then murdered. Thomas Sankara spoke of food self-sufficiency and rejecting debt slavery, and was assassinated at 37. Nelson Mandela was labeled a terrorist and imprisoned for 27 years before being rebranded a hero. And today Traoré is called destabilizing. Different names, same accusations. For every African leader who dares to redirect resources to their own people is targeted not by their citizens, but by forces outside their borders. And the warrant is less about crime than about warning. Do not disrupt contracts. Do not challenge supply chains. Do not dream of sovereignty, but the effect is backfiring. Because instead of fear, it fuels defiance. Instead of isolation, it exposes the system. Instead of silencing, it amplifies the cry of a continent. With miners asking who the real thieves are, the laborers in the pits or the companies exporting billions. Farmers asking why defending their land is criminalized. Students asking if this is justice than what was colonization. And on social media, the story spreads faster than governments can contain. A statement in Ouagadougou, echoed in Lagos within minutes, debated in Johannesburg within hours, discussed in New York by the next morning. Because today, Africa's youth are digital natives. Over 60% under 25, connected, unburdened by colonial submission. And for them, the warrant is not deterrence, but evidence that the old order fears their awakening. And workers, farmers, soldiers, students now speak a common language of defiance. Across borders, unions coordinate, youth groups organize, farmers exchange seeds. A Pan-African movement rising not from conferences, but from the ground. While Western media frame it as instability, Africans call it dignity, sovereignty, freedom. Painted on walls, sung in markets, shouted in streets, until the world can no longer unhear it. And this shift extends beyond rhetoric into geopolitics. The Sahel Alliance no longer symbolic, but a platform for resource control, border security, and autonomy. Unsettling Paris and Brussels, because these nations hold reserves critical to global supply chains. Shifting leverage southward, while African leaders now reject conditional aid, renegotiate contracts, and demand sovereignty. And as they do, the response from abroad remains predictable sanctions, threats, isolation, but every measure risks, strengthening the very defiance it seeks to crush, because sanctions rally unity. Isolation drives new alliances. Warnings validate the struggle, and the deeper question emerges. Is this truly about peace and law, or about preserving a system where Africa supplies but never owns, produces but never profits, exists only as backyard, not equal? Because history proves that those once branded criminals by empire are remembered as heroes by their people. And so the true breaking news is not the warrant itself, but the reaction it unleashed. A reaction measured not in courtrooms, but in classrooms. Not in parliaments, but in markets. Not in headlines, but in chants. And as Africa rises to claim its wealth, its voice, its dignity, the question for us all is no longer whether Traoré can survive, but whether the old order can withstand the weight of a people who have finally decided to build instead of beg, to stand instead of kneel, to declare with one voice that Africa bows to no one.